Hello, lovelies. We're gonna have the same thing with this that I did with my Q&A I did yesterday. I'm exhausted today, and I've been running around, so just ignore my appearance. You got makeup yesterday, so you should be happy. This is second day hair. I put dry shampoo in it for you. I still care. This video is going to be answers to the sewing questions that I got for the Q&A up to this point. And I'm just going to try to go through these and make this shorter than the personal one. But that one had lots more questions. And this one, I'm just going to stick to the questions about sewing for you. And again, it looks like I'm looking off to the side because I have all of the questions over here on the other side of my monitor. So just pretend that, you know, I've invited you to tea and you're sitting over there. Okay, so the first question was, would I be willing to do a video about how to make a wet bag with a zipper? And I got a couple of people asking for this. Excuse me. Yes, I would love to do that. I have to order some more PUL because I'm almost out. And the lining on a wet bag is made from polyurethane laminate, at least the way I'm going to make them. And as soon as I get some of that and I make a couple and I feel confident about how they're turning out, I will be happy to do a full tutorial video on making a wet bag for you. And then the second one I got was also a video request. Could I do a video tutorial on how to make a gusseted shell? And I don't know if I have permission to share photos of it. I think I might. Basically what a gusseted shell is, and if I'm able to put a picture in here, I'll click over to one. This is a picture of the product that's made by a pattern that I've just purchased but have not received yet from a shop called Mama Can Do It on Etsy, and the link will be there on your screen. If this is what you're looking for in a pattern, you can buy it from her. It's a shell that has elastic in the bottom so that it kind of curves up to conform to your body. I am currently trying to learn how to make one of those. I've not made one successfully yet, so I need to get an actual pattern. I need to purchase a pattern. I found the one I want to purchase, and then I will learn how to do that. That may take a while. They're more complex than a regular pad is. So once I learn how to do that, I will be happy to share that with you, because especially for, excuse me, my eye's itching, especially for people who want to use pads for incontinence, the gusseted pads seem to be something that really helps out with that. So I definitely want to do that for you. That's part of a larger project I have, so that when people ask me about using cloth pads or making cloth pads for incontinence, that I have more complete and helpful answers for you than to just refer you to the cloth diapering community. Because at this point, that's my best advice for people who have incontinence needs above and beyond what a regular pad like the ones that we make in my current tutorials would be sufficient for. The third question, and this one kind of relates to another question that I was asked, will I be doing some preteen pads? And then the other one is, will I be doing larger pads, longer ones? And that question, I gotta move this over. I can't stand looking over to the side. I tried. So I may move this back and forth. Was, you know, this impression that preteens require a different sized pad and that larger women need a different sized pad than more petite, or petite is a much misused word. Petite doesn't mean slender. Petite means short with small hands and small feet and short limbs. I am petite, but I am not terribly slender. But anyway, women's bodies come in all different shapes and sizes, and so the area that we cover and wear a pad in, you know, you're talking about thighs, you're talking about length, you're talking about all different kinds of things, and those are not related to your size as far as your weight or your body fat content. You know, none of those things have any bearing, and your age has no bearing on what size pad you like. There are preteens, you know, like my daughter's age, who like teeny tiny little pads because the big ones don't fit or what have you. And then there are preteens who like longer pads or thicker pads because those make them feel more confident, or because they're just more comfortable for some people. So If the question is, will I be demonstrating some smaller pads than the ones that I've sewn in the past? I don't know. I could maybe show you the pattern that I recently made for an 8-inch, which is a size pad that is favored by teens who wear, smaller underwear. Obviously, the size of a preteen's underwear kind of dictates that the pads have to be a little bit smaller, so that would make sense. But the processes for sewing a smaller pad and the processes for making a smaller pattern are exactly the same as the processes that I've shown on my demonstrated 10-inch ones. However, if I do some smaller pads, I will make sure to show them to you and share them with you. I'll be happy to do that. It's really important to me, though, to stress, because this is something that women have real, honest feelings about this. There's this impression that you need a larger size if you're a larger person. And that's not necessarily true. Your menstrual needs don't correlate with your dress size. Your comfort in your menstrual care does not correlate with your dress size. There are women who are much, much smaller than me that wear much, much bigger pads than I do and who prefer a much wider gusset than I do. I kind of like no bigger than a 2.5, but when they get down to like 2, I've got a very narrow range of comfort for the width on the gussets for my pads. When I make a pad and it turns out to have a 3-inch gusset, I don't like it anymore. And when it turns out to have a 2-inch gusset, I don't like it anymore. I like them right in the middle. But there are other women who don't like them to be any slimmer than 3 inches in the middle, that sort of thing. And then there are very small people who really like to wear a 14-inch pad because that gives them confidence and it's comfortable with whatever underwear or pants, trousers that they like to wear. So, again, as with the preteen pads, the processes for making the lengthy patterns, those sewing them and making the patterns for them will be exactly the same skill set, the exact same processes that I've used to show the 10-inch pad. And I wouldn't ever refer to a shorter pad or a longer pad as something for a small person or a young person versus an older person or a larger person. These things are all about personal preference. So if what you prefer is a longer pad or a thicker pad in the gusset, if there are ways to do that I have not addressed in my previous tutorial, specific questions you have about how do I make a pad bigger, then I can try to answer those particular questions. If you watch the quarterfold pattern making video, and if you watch the how to sew a cloth pad video, and you're unable to ascertain what you need for making a small pad or a large pad from that demonstration, let me know how I can clarify that for you, and I will happily do it. And if in the future I make a longer pad or a shorter pad, I'll try to film that process just so that you can see it, but it is truly exactly the same thing. Okay, got long-winded with that one, I'm sorry. But I really think it's important. Women need to release this notion that the pad you need is somehow tied to your dress size. It doesn't matter if you're a size 00 or if you're still wearing children's clothing sizes, or if you are, because my daughter wears children's clothing sizes and her favorite pads are the 10-inch ones because she wears them now just to practice. I think that's oh, that would embarrass her. I might have to cut that out. Because I don't want to embarrass my kid. But anyway, she's very small. She's 11. And she's a teeny tiny 11-year-old. For an 11-year-old, she's teeny tiny. And she likes the longer pads. And if you're a larger person, some women just really don't like to feel anything in the front or back, and they just have center flow, so they don't need anything in the front or back. So for them, the pads that they wear need to be small and in the middle and unobtrusive. So please release any emotional attachment you have to the idea that if you're a bigger person, your menstrual products need to be bigger. because they don't necessarily. However, if you prefer bigger pads, oh, you're in good company. Lots of people really like big ones. In fact, there's a lot of ladies out there who wear like 14, 16-inch long pads. And, you know, I've seen some really crazy shapes. And so, you know what, maybe I can do that. Maybe I think that's what would be a useful video for the larger sized question, would be to show you some of the different creative shapes that I have seen people come up with to handle front and back leaking issues and to be comfortable in it, you know, for people who prefer much larger pads. So that I can try to cogitate on and try to do. What is my favorite topper fabric and why? This one I got asked a ton of times. I think there were like 5 different people who asked in one fashion or other what my favorite topper fabric is. And that's the fabric that's on the top of the pad that faces up to the body. I'm gonna have to move this back in the middle. Reading my question and then going over here to the... I don't really have a favorite. I have like a group of favorites. I really like them for different reasons. For just regular sewing, I prefer to sew with cotton tops, quilter's cotton, just cotton woven. Those all mean basically the same thing. I'm sure there are technical differences, but basically woven cotton fabric. And the reason that that one's my favorite one to sew with is because it comes in so many different prints and so many different, you know, there's styles and such that, you know, you can really get creative with what you make. Flannel does too. Flannel now comes in just an amazing array. But for my daily, you know, minor incontinence, I really prefer flannel. Now maybe when it gets really hot in the summertime, I'll change my mind about that, but I did go through a summer with pads already and it never really bothered me. The flannel I prefer to cotton top for daily incontinence purposes simply because it tends to absorb immediately. So if I have a sneeze or if I have a cough or if I stand up or something happens and it's like a, you know, it doesn't sit there and pool or slide off to the sides or get on me. It goes straight into the pad when it's a flannel topper. And I've had a couple of cotton prints, you know, if they were woven too tightly or whatever, where there was enough resistance that I felt wet for a few seconds before it. And I don't care for that. So flannel's my favorite for that. For overnights, I love organic bamboo velour. It's just cushy and soft, and I prefer the feeling of it to minky, and I'll talk about that again in a minute because I had a specific question that will apply to what the other thing I want to say about minky. So my 3 favorites would be quilter's cotton. I love to sew with it for menstrual purposes. It's absolutely perfect. It's fine. I tend to use up all my flannel pads first when I'm off of my cycle, just for my daily needs. I just tend to prefer the flannel. And I love OBV. Love OBV, organic bamboo velour. And so people were asking me, there was another one where I was specifically asked about my topper fabric, why I only tend to use cotton tops in my videos and tutorials. And it's because when I use woven cotton in the tutorials, there's no fuzz, there's nothing fluffy in the way, and you can see better what I'm doing. In addition to which, some of the tutorials have been about patching and such, and I tend to prefer working with cotton for that. Flannel is also made out of cotton. When I say cotton, I mean woven cotton or quilter's cotton. So that's why I don't have any, you know, prejudice against any of the other fabrics. It's just for tutorials, I think you see what I'm doing better with just the flat. If I were to sew with minky, I don't like sewing with minky. I tend to buy my minky as opposed to sewing with it. I have made a minky pad and I really like it, and at some point I'll show it to you. But yeah, so if I had to pick just one and I could only wear one ever, it would be flannel. So since it was mentioned, I think the next time I do a sewing tutorial, I'll use flannel for it. It says, I would like to know about using synthetic fabrics as pad toppers like minky and if it has any negative effects on the body. I don't know. I have not researched that. I've never heard anybody say that polyester had a negative effect, but I don't know the answer to that. I have not researched that yet. What I can tell you about minky is that I did have a slight reaction to it one time, and I don't know whether I was reacting to minky itself because it's polyester, or if I was reacting to the individual fibers touching my skin on a particularly sensitive skin day. You see this redness? This is from touching something and then it gets red for 30 minutes. I have unbelievably sensitive skin. My skin is allergic to a wide array of things that normal people do not have allergies to. I can't wear jewelry, really. There's only like one or two metals that I don't react to. So, you know, I'm not a good case study for that. Like, see, I've done this. This is going to be like flaming purple for the rest of this video because I touched my décolletage here. It's unnerving. But anyway, so as far as I know, there's nothing wrong. I've never heard anyone say anything about polyester, but you might want to read up on that if it's a concern for you. One thing that you do need to know, and I thought was worth note alongside this question, is that organic bamboo velour and bamboo fabrics, because they have the word bamboo in them, people think of them as being, you know, somehow more natural or whatever. But by the time bamboo has been broken down into the viscose and turned into fibers that can be, it's a great fabric. I'm not, you know, ragging on bamboo at all. I love bamboo. I love organic bamboo velour. But it's not a natural fabric. It is just as synthetic as a polyester by the time they're done with it. So don't think about that. But I've never had any kind of reaction or itching when I was wearing a bamboo pad. But I did, I want to say 2 or 3 times wearing Minky. But I think that had to do with the fibers and the way the fibers are shaped touching my skin. Then it had to do with it being polyester because it didn't have an allergic response. I just had an itchy feeling. Okay. Oh, and I got a couple of people asked me about panty liners. I don't really use panty liners because I have daily incontinence, so I don't usually wear a thin liner. I usually wear just like a moderate pad every day because they're really slim but that's my panty liner is I just wear a pad. But for people who do wear liners, no, I haven't sewn any yet. But my daughter has asked me to make some. So I'm in the middle of making her a set of panty liners, and I will show you what I do for that and any opinions I develop about what you should put in them. And then I specifically was asked, do you think that WindPro fleece would be overkill in a panty liner? It depends on what you use it for. If what you're using it for is just, you know, to keep things dry and clean down there, you probably don't need it, and you can get cheaper things to back your panty liners with. But if you have, you know, if you're a person who has discharge and you have daily moisture down there that you don't want to deal with, sure, why not? I think it would be great. I think overkill is what you decide is overkill, because this is all about your personal preferences. Okay. I would like to know about using synthetic... No, that's not... I just read that one. God, Amy. I'm curious about using fruit to hand dye fabric for a pad topper. Do you think that's a good idea? Have you tried doing this before? I have never dyed anything, so I'm kind of fascinated by it. And I have a friend named Misty Triplet, and she's part of several of the boards in the pad making community. So, you know, if you are involved in that, you can find her and ask. She is a brilliant fabric dyer, and she does just beautiful hand dyed organic bamboo velour. I mean, she's really good at what she does, and so you might want to ask her or ask around for other people who dye fabrics and just ask them what they think of that, because it sounds like a good idea to me. I don't see why not, but I don't know because I've never done that before. I've never dyed anything chemically or with fruit or whatever else people use. What would I say are the best materials for the core of a pad? There are tons and tons of things that you can use. So these two are not, I'm not telling you to go buy these two things, but just for my personal preference, I like Zorb because it's very easy to sew with, and I like bamboo fleece, which is a very absorbent form of bamboo fabric, bamboo fleece. Really dig that stuff. But bamboo fleece is really stretchy and hard to sew with. So at this point, I'm trying to dabble now and see if I can get any better at sewing with that. Where do you get Zorb from? You can order it on the wazoodle.com website, and you can get it from Amazon. And if you stick around some of the fabric and pad buy-sell trade groups on Facebook, people sometimes have pieces of it that they want to get rid of. In fact, I bought a yard of it from somebody that way. What would be the best materials to pair with Zorb to prevent compression leaks? And a compression leak is like, you know, when you sit on it, it's very spongy. So what happens when you squeeze a sponge? All the water comes out. And Zorb 1 is sometimes prone to that, especially if it's very heavily saturated. So I put flannel in with my Zorb because the flannel will prevent that, and it works great. A lot of other people will make heavy pads. This would be a heavy absorbency, not a moderate absorbency. Adding 2 pieces of flannel to 1 layer of Zorb, I consider that a moderate pad. But for a heavy pad, you put 1 layer of Zorb and 1 layer of bamboo fleece, and that's pretty great. And the bamboo fleece will stop compression leaking. What patterns or materials would be best for postpartum pads? I was not using cloth after delivery, so I can't give you any personal experience-based opinions on that, but I can tell you that what people talk about is combinations of Zorb and flannel, Zorb and terry, bamboo fleece, lots of different things. How would I layer the inner parts? Because I haven't made one of these, I just don't feel qualified to answer this. I could tell you what I would do if I were trying to do it. I would put 2 layers of Zorb in the middle, and I would put 2 layers of flannel on top, and I would put 2 layers of flannel on the bottom, or I would put 2 layers of flannel on there and put in a piece of bamboo fleece with 2 layers of Zorb. But that's just what I think I would do if I were making postpartum pads. Your best bet for a good answer on that is to go and speak to some of the women in the cloth community and Facebook groups who have experience using them after giving birth, and which ones they liked and what was in them. Let's see. Oh, this question is one of my favorite ones because I'm working on this right now. Hannah Random Number said, I really want to switch to cloth pads, and I'm wondering if I'd be better off buying my first ones or attempting to make them. I always encourage people who know how to sew and have, you know, a sewing machine and some inclination. I mean, if you want to try sewing them, I always recommend to start there because it's cheaper, it's personally rewarding, and then you have a lot more options to try out. Again, without, you know, finding new shops and things to try. You can just make the ones that you want to try, and you can try the shapes and the materials that you want to try out before you purchase from someone. And then her question, she had a second part to that, which is also, if I do make them, is old flannel an acceptable material to use? And a couple of people asked me about different things that, can I use this to make a pad? We call these upcycled pads, which is where you take something that you already have, like a pair of pajamas or old t-shirts or sweatpants or whatever that you have laying around the house that you don't wear anymore, and you're wondering if you can chop that up and use it to make pads. The answer to almost everything I've heard so far is yes. You can use almost anything that's made out of a comfortable fabric that's absorbent, and you can use those things to make pads with. Athletic jersey, you know, all kinds of things people chop up and make pads out of, and it's successful. Yes, if you have some flannel, you don't need anything else. You can make an entire pad with nothing but flannel, and it would work very well. The typical wisdom is that you'd have a layer of flannel on top and a layer of flannel in the back. And then for the core, you would want to have 2 pieces or 3 pieces for like a light, 4 or 5 pieces for a heavy, and about 6 or 7 for, you know, something ultra. And if you need more than that, then we need to start talking about adding things other than flannel to the pad, like terry cloth. You can use old towels, sweatshirt material, cotton jersey from t-shirts, that sort of thing. And then I got a really cool question from Jade, where she says, can socks be used as a pad inner? So can you use socks in the absorbent core? You sure can. Most of them are made out of terry cloth. And socks are made usually to be either absorbent or wicking, and depending on what kind of fabric, you know, if you have socks that are made out of some kind of a jazzed up material that has some synthetics added into it, make sure that you know the sock is absorbent, and then sure, launder it and then chop it up and stick it in there. Probably work great. How do you make a pattern that you have drawn longer or shorter? And would you do a video on this to explain the differences between the different lengths and what's needed to shorten or lengthen a pad? Sorry, my throat's scratchy. I try not to do that on video. That's, I'm not terribly good at that yet. What I generally find that I do is I just start from scratch when I make a shorter one or a longer one. And I'm currently, because that's part of what I want to do, because people ask me, can we have your pattern? Well, yeah, you can have it as soon as I figure out how to present it to you. And what I'm working on now is trying to take my pattern and present it in different sizes for you so that it would be the same basic shape but different sizes. I'm not very good at that yet. But when I figure it out, Lauren, I will answer that question for you, I promise. I'll probably even demonstrate it because I'm going to be so thrilled when I figure out how to do it that I'm going to be just really pleased to share it with you. So there will probably be a video about that in the future, and if not, it'll get discussed. So thank you for that question. It's an excellent one. I'm not very good at doing that yet, so I don't know. Then I got a couple of questions about wing droop, which is how you combat wings that droop. And I'm gonna have to stop the video here because I didn't bring up a pad to demonstrate with. Bad Amy. Because I'm gonna show you some things that I'm talking about, because demonstrating will be easier than just me talking about it. So I went downstairs, and then 2 days later I came back up with a pad to demonstrate with. This, for those of you who have seen the feature patchwork video, is the salad pad. And I have to show you, I'm going to use this one to demonstrate some of the things I wanted to get across about wing droop, but I have to show you what happened to this poor pad. You'll see right there was where the topper stitching began and stopped, and Cadence got a hold of this. She never takes pads like that off of my table. She gets them out of the drawer when I take them out of the laundry and put them in the drawer clean. She does like to get in there because she loves socks and she likes clean pads. She has never, thank you blessed everything, that the dog has never taken a dirty one. She's never seemed interested in them, but the clean ones she likes. I think she thinks they're stuffed animals to tear up. Anyway, but there's the beginning and ending stitch right there, and it got snapped, and you know, she wasn't being rough with it, but she was chewing on it. So anyway, it's been washed now, but this is unraveled, so I can't give this one away because I don't know. At some point this is probably going to unravel and I'm going to have to do pad surgery, which makes me sad because I loved this one. Okay. Anyway, wing droop. So I'm going to show you, number one, what the subscriber was asking. When you have a pad that sits properly in your underwear, this is kind of what would happen. This would conform to your body. The gusset would sit relatively flat in the crotch part of your underwear, and the wings here would sit flush up underneath the underwear. Wing droop is when you have wings that do this number, so that when you walk or when you sit or whatever, this can get bunched up and be uncomfortable. So that's what they mean by wing droop, would be something like this. Imagine this is how it sits when it's all snapped up inside your underwear. There are a couple of different reasons that this could occur. The first and most obvious one being if on your pattern the wings were too long, if the wings were too long for the gusset on the pad. Again, this is what we refer to as the gusset. It's just the crotch area. So if this is 2.5 inches wide and then the wings when snapped are like 3.5 inches wide, you're going to have an inch of gap there. And that's easily fixed if you snap. And you can ascertain that by snapping the wings in the back of the pad. There we go. If you snap it and they lay nice and flush, and you know, you can feel that it's a nice firm fit, that's not a problem. But if you get back there and they're very loose and jiggly, or if you can put like your whole hand in there and that's too much room. You know, you could probably force your hand in there, but you know what I mean. If there's just too much room there, then what you want to do is go back to your pattern and cut off 1/4 inch per side and then try again and see how that's going to work out for you, which is exactly what I had to do with this pattern. It's been fixed now. They fit. But before, each side was 1/4 inch wider on the pattern. So I cut 1/4 inch off of the pattern on both sides, and now they fit beautifully. So once you've ruled out that long wings are the problem, let's say that your pattern is fine. When you make the pad and you're looking at it, it's perfect. It's just like this. So what's the problem? Whenever I put it on, it droops. Okay, well, I'm going to show you. This is the most common reason I can think of, because this is the one I've experienced. If when you're wearing your pad, this happens, So, you know, when you go, you put on your pad, and then later you come and you go to the restroom or whatever, and your pad has been squished in the middle like this in your underwear. That can cause, ta-da, pad, wing droop. See how the wings are drooping when you do that? That's because you've got a pad there with a gusset that is too wide for either your body or your underwear or both, meaning that you need a pad with a more slender gusset to fit you properly. So those are the two major reasons. So if you've ruled out the long wings, which would be the number one reason that the wings would droop, check and see if you're experiencing this kind of thing, where when you go after wearing a pad for an hour or so, you go into the restroom and this has happened. That means that the gusset is too wide for your underwear or your body, and that causes wing droop. And then finally, snap placement. You can have wings that fit together perfectly, but if you put the snaps on wrong, it can cause some wing droopage. So just make sure that that's not your problem. And if you rule out all three of those things, come to the sewing group and show us pictures of your individual pad, and one of the geniuses over there will be able to help you figure out what the particular problem you're having is. Can I recommend a basic sewing machine for beginners? No, I can't. I'm sorry. I only have one machine that I've ever used. And so I'm not qualified to recommend. I don't know if my machine is better or worse than other machines out there for beginners. I just know that I like my machine and it has worked for me, but I have nothing to compare it to, so I cannot really do that for you. I can tell you that I have a Brother CS6000i, and I really like it. And I've put the name of that down on the screen so that you can see it. I'll leave it there for a few seconds. When you do the wave stitching, how does it work that the beginning and the end fit together? And then she puts in parentheses, I hope this question is not too dumb. It is not dumb at all. Trust me, I have spent hours agonizing over this, okay? I showed you on this one. Unfortunately, Cadence tore this one up. I picked this one because the contrast on it was enough that you could see it. But anyway, also, this one had these tab wings on it, so I could easily demonstrate the wing droop. I'm going to show you with this pad, and I've lost it. There it is. I'm going to show you where the beginning and end are, because the answer is they don't meet up. Every now and then, if you're really lucky, it'll just, you'll hit it just right, and it will, but they don't meet up at the beginning and the end. Here on this pad, where did it go? There it is. Right there. See how they overlap? How these are perfect, and then when you get, this one was the beginning, and this one was the end, and you see how they overlap. They don't match up perfectly. And even on the higher end pads that you purchase from some of the best shops out there, you'll notice that decorative stitching does not always match up. There's nothing you can do about that. It just happens that way. And then on the rare occasion when you have one that does bump, because for whatever reason you've just got it perfectly around, or you've set the length just perfectly right for that particular pad and that particular day, and it lines up, throw a party, because that'll probably never happen again. But you can do it neatly and like this one, close up enough that it's not obtrusive, it doesn't look unattractive, and you really have to look for the beginning and end point. And how the stitch works, it's just a programmed stitch on my machine. So there's a little button on my machine. Some machines have a turn knob where you choose which decorative stitch that's pre-programmed into your machine that you want to use. On mine, I push a button to stitch number 5, and that's how I get that one. Would it be okay to use fabric glue before flipping the pad instead of sewing? How would that look, and would it be durable? I have no idea. I did not know that such a glue, such an adhesive existed. So I don't see why not. You should try it, right? Just to see what would happen. I've never heard of anyone doing that, so I'm assuming that if there was a miracle product out there that was no-sew that you could use instead of a sewing machine, that I would have heard about it. But I don't know. Give it a shot. The only thing that I would encourage you to do, because you have to remember that your labia and the walls of your vagina and all the skin around your vaginal opening, there's a lot of mucous membranes down there, and that skin is much more susceptible than like the skin on the back of your hand or the skin on your face. It's much more susceptible to taking on chemicals or contact with things that might hurt you. That's going to get into your bloodstream a lot faster. It's not as protective. Mucous membranes are much more vulnerable skin. So look at the ingredients very carefully on the glue that you're using and make sure that there's not skin sensitivity warnings or anything like that. Be safe. Take care of your bits, Make sure that there's nothing in there that's going to hurt you. And if it's a benign glue, if there's nothing toxic in there, go for it and let me know. Show me pictures, seriously. That would be so fantastic if that works. Can I give tips on how to work with difficult or stretchy fabrics like bamboo velour? This is bamboo velour, and honestly, I'm just showing this off because this is my brand new Annie Bell's pad. I just got it. Look at that. How gorgeous is that? I'm in love with it. This is bamboo velour, and you can see, let me see if I can get it close. You see how fluffy and awesome that is? Oh, it's so soft. I can't wait. Okay. It's difficult to sew with stretchy fabrics like minky and bamboo velour and bamboo fleece and cotton knit jersey, which is t-shirt material. When I say cotton knit jersey, I think knit jersey means something different in other countries than it does in the United States. When an American says cotton knit jersey, they mean like t-shirt material. This that I have on that's fuzzy, let me see if I can get it close. This is fuzzy on the back and smooth on the front. This, some people call it fleece, because technically I guess it is a type of fleece, but we call this sweatshirt material. It's not a jumper, it's not a sweater, it's just sweatshirt material. So I don't know what that's called in other places. And I actually lived in Europe and people wore these things, and I still don't know what they call these. It's like hoodies. They don't call them sweatshirts though. Ooh, I can't remember what they call them. They don't call them sweatshirts. I got so off track there. Oh, tips for using these stretchy fabrics. Number one, practice, because it is very much something that you'll get better at by feel, which requires time and repetition. Be patient with yourself. It's not going to look perfect the first time you do it. Even if you're very good at sewing with other fabrics, you have to be patient with yourself because it's going to take practice. They're not going to look as good as the fabrics that you've been using until you get a feel for it. And then, so be patient. And then third, would be very careful about pinning. You can pin it, you can clip it, you can use basting spray. There are people who say they use glue sticks, the non-toxic glue sticks their kids have, like at school. Whatever you have to do to hold it down, but if you use an adhesive of any kind, make sure that it's something non-toxic that's going to wash out the first time you launder it so that it won't be in the pad anymore. And there are lots of products out there for that. Whatever you have to do to hold it down and keep it still while you're sewing. That's more important with the stretchy fabrics because obviously they like to travel, they like to stretch, they like to move around. So that's it. Patience, practice, and hold that sucker still. Find a way, whether it's pinning it every half inch, whether it's clipping it a lot, whether it's gluing it down, find a way to keep it still while you're sewing. How long does it take you to make a pad from start to finish, and about how many do you make a month? She says, Catherine, you're so cute. She says, I feel like you can just whip them up, but I'm guessing it takes more time than we would imagine. Is that true? I make between 0 and 10 a month, I would say. I'll go on sewing jags where I'll make 5 in a week, and then I don't make any for another 3 weeks. It just depends on when I feel like sewing. But the real answer to this is it took me about 30 minutes to make this one. This is just one piece of fabric with a fleece backer. And it has, a piece of Zorb and a couple pieces of flannel in it. So that one took me about 30 minutes. And the reason that one only took me about 30 minutes is because I made it the same day I made a bunch of other ones. And it was because I had already cut out all of the pieces for the absorbent core. Sometimes while I'm watching television, I will just sit down with my pattern and just trace it onto the Zorb and the flannel because I know I'm going to use them all up. And I'll cut out all of the absorbent core pieces. And cutting out fabric is, for me, the most time-consuming part of any of this. So I can, if all the pieces are pre-cut, it only takes me 20 to 30 minutes to sew a pad, which is still a lot slower than people who do this for a business. On the sewing and some of the other community boards, people will be like, oh, I'm so proud of myself. They run shops, they sell their pads, and they'll have a stack of like 50 of them mid-process. It's like, I don't make 50 in a day. I couldn't even approach that. I think the most I've ever made in a single day was like 4 or 5. And that was like sewing all day long. So, but when I do like a patchwork one like this, that depends on how simple, or if I already know what I'm doing, or if I just sit down and play. Sometimes I spend all day making a pad. Sometimes I spend a couple hours making a pad. And if I'm just, you know, if I've pre-cut everything, it goes pretty quickly. I know you love Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. Has there been a character or pattern that you'd like to have, but you just haven't found the fabric? Yes, I'm looking for the perfect Jane Austen fabric. I have found some Jane Austen fabrics, but I don't like any of them that I've seen so far. I went on Spoonflower and I looked for some things, and I never liked the fonts they use on the quote ones. Some of the pictures I just think are not very Austen-like. I think it's people fan art and stuff, and it's just not ever been in a style that I wanted to purchase. So I'm on the lookout for some perfect Jane Austen fabric. But other than that, no, it's pretty much Eeyore or graphic prints. Let's see. The first pad I made didn't have long enough wings. What would you do if this happened to you? That's a really good question, because that just happened to me last week. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a teeny tiny little piece of elastic. I have some 1/2 inch elastic, and I'm going to cut a piece of that out, and then I'm going to sew the ends under. So I don't know. You know what? I'll do a video. When I do this, I'll do a video showing you the whole process. But what I'm going to do is take a little tiny piece of elastic. I'm going to sew the ends down so that it doesn't fray, and then I'm going to put a snap set in that little tiny piece of elastic so that it will bridge the gap between the two snaps on the pad. It's called a wing extender. And I'll show you how I'm going to do that. I'll do that on video. That was an excellent question, Linda. That just happened to me, and I'm going to have to do that. And then the final question for sewing. This is the last one that I got in the sewing category as of the time I'm making this video. There may be some more later, and I'll answer any future ones. I'll answer them there in the channel. You'll still get entered, don't worry. I'm just trying to make these because the number of questions got out of hand, and I was like, I need to start making the videos for this now, or I'm going to be making them till Christmas. If you were making pads for a 12-year-old to use for her first cycle, how big would you make them, and what level of absorbency? What I've done with my 11-year-old, which is the same way I would answer the 12-year-old question, is I made a variety of lengths for her. I purchased an 8-inch pad for her from someone. I gave her some of my 9 inches that I don't use anymore, and I've made her a couple of 10-inch pads. She has a few liners that are like 7 inches long to try, and then I waited to see which ones that she liked the best, and I let her wear them around for practice, and then I asked her, okay, which ones do you like? And she likes the 9-inch and the 10-inch the best. So I would recommend that you do that with your 12-year-old. Make her some pads that are moderate, make her some pads that are heavy. Unfortunately, you won't know until her cycle starts what kind of a flow she has and what her needs are going to be. And you probably won't know until the 2nd or 3rd period what's going to be normal for her as far as how heavy her pads need to be. That's going to be very much trial and error. But I would make her a couple of heavy ones, and I'd make her a couple of moderate ones, and I'd let her try a variety of different sizes. So you can either buy some for her, or you can sew an 8-inch, sew a 9-inch, sew a 10-inch, and go from there and see what she likes. If she tries on a shorter one and she says it's poking her, it's riding up in her bum or whatever, make her a longer one and see if having it longer fixes the problem. And if it doesn't, go shorter and see what your deal is there. Unfortunately, that's going to be trial and error. Okay, and so that's it. Thank you so much for sending in your sewing questions. I hope this video was kind of fun and helpful, and I'll be making more of these as time goes on. Probably over the weekend I'll make another one with a different category of questions. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. I'm blown away. I'm so happy. And you guys gave me some really good questions this time. I hope these were helpful. And if not, let me know in the comments below, and I will try to address your more specific questions. Thanks. Bye.